Alright guys, this is how you properly Webster or dust off a vent. Most likely you can use your Webster as well if needed, because it acts exactly the same. Just make sure once you're done with said either dusting off a vent or dusting off blinds that you most likely for sure will have to clean it off at the end of it, just so you don't add that dust or spread that dust to anything further that you're going to be using it next. So as right now we have a squared off vent looking. If anything, the best thing to do that I like to do is make sure we go to the edges first on the outside, just like that. And most likely it is very built up. You will see all of that dust just slowly start to dissipate. Going to the inner side. And as of right now, I'm not necessarily hitting the center of the squares yet, really. I'm just basically getting the edges. And then at that point, that's when you go thoroughly into the center. Same thing with this side. I'm basically just getting the edges first before moving into the center. Of course, at this point with higher ceilings or whatnot, higher vents, most likely we're going to be looking up. So if anything, you want to stand at a certain specific angle to where make sure that none of that dust falls into your eyes or just falls onto you. Most likely it is going to happen, but at that point, like I said, be very mindful of it and make sure you're at a specific angle to where none of that dust will fall into your eyes and damage yourself. Of course, if you need to, you can always stand at a certain angle, parallel-wise, or even at the left or right side of whatever said vent, just to prevent any of that dusting falling onto you. And basically, since I went a clockwise formation, what I like to do next is just go in the counterclockwise, make sure that all of it is getting off. As right now, I'm not going too hard, I'm just softly going against the edges before moving myself into the center. And now, of course, whatever method you want to use is going to work no matter what it is. It's most likely to get all of those dusting off the vents. And every vent is going to be looking different no matter how it's shaped. It could be a smaller vent, it could be one of these little floral looking outside vents. But if anything, this works very efficiently on basically all vents. Of course, most of these handles will have a short length. And of course, some of them are set like that, but also as well that we're working with right now, we're able to extend it for certain higher parts. So of course, when needed, you know exactly what you should do lengthwise to make sure you're getting everything that you got to get on the vents. Of course, with this already, this is a brand new Webster, so not much buildup on this, so we definitely use this for another vent if needed before we have to either switch it out or clean it off. If anything, to clean it off, basically, if it's very heavily built up, if anything, I like to make sure you have a rag on you and just kind of just brush everything off. And most likely you'll see it all fall off. And then as long as you keep it cleaned, there should be no reason why any residual dust, dirt buildup, cobwebs, or whatever should spread into any other surfaces or ceilings that you're going to be using this for. Of course, this also acts very well as dusting baseboards or whatnot. If anything, this baseboard isn't too low, isn't too high, so if anything, I like to keep it at a mid. And at this point, to, of course, prevent any, dusting spreading on, of course, the baseboards, just slightly just give it a little brush. I see a lot of people just going strictly like this. Yes, that does work, but it only works so much because if you really think about it, you're still basically just spraying the whole entire dust further down. So if anything, just give a nice little brush every now and then. As you can see, I'm basically brushing outwards. Same thing how we demonstrated with the sweeping or dust mopping. You want to basically push everything into the center if needed to. That's where you just vacuum it all up. Of course, like I said, you keep it very straight if you want to, but that's only so effective for so much. So if anything, what I'm doing is brushing it out to prevent any of that spreading on the other sides of the baseboards. And of course, if needed, you can also use a broom,
the bristles of the broom to as well act the exact same way as how this would work. Of course, also if you don't have a Webster and it needs set account, you can also use, again, like I said, a broom. The bristles will work just as efficient as a regular Webster would. But if that's the case, like I said, we'll be very mindful of how everything looks, make sure nothing looks any built up. Of course, the only way you can properly tell if there is any dusting on baseboards is basically just getting on the knee and just giving it a thorough wipe, see if there's any residuals left. At this point, everything looks good, so most likely our cleaners are getting this baseboard very well when they needed to. Of course, this works well as for light fixtures, if anything, as well as in this case, basically, since it's basically squared off, just like how that vent was. Basically do the exact same motion, lightly, just around it. Do not put too much pressure, because if you put too much pressure, you may knock off this light covering. So of course, be very mindful of that. Of course, look at how it's patterned wise. At this point, we have a little divider in the center, so of course, lightly brush through. And I mean, when I say lightly, very lightly, because you don't want to put too much pressure to impact the covering of the light fixture. And at that point, for how it's patterned, I just like to do a little quick streak around, right across. Same thing opposite wise. Going down vertically. And now, just as my posture was, we're cleaning the vent to make sure you're at an angle, to make sure none of that dust or whatever builds up, cobwebs, whatever it is that's on there, doesn't get into your eyes or falls onto you. So with this Webster, it's very efficient in a lot of different ways that you'll be very surprised about. But again, make sure if it looks like it's dirty, make sure you just wipe it off to prevent any further dusting or dirt spreading when you're going to use it next on whatever it is. Okay. And now also, same thing with door frames, you can also use this as well as a brush. Most likely, you don't want to keep it too long, because at that point, you're basically just going to be having a tough time with your stance and whatnot. Keep it at this length. Most likely, you're gonna have no choice but to stand at an angle. But of course, make sure you know exactly how tall, or you can basically use a judgment to see exactly how tall this light door frame is. As of right now, it's not nothing too crazy, so of course, keep it at its default length. Same way, go against the door frames, all the way around. Make sure you're getting under the bottom of these doors. You'd be surprised, a lot of people do not get this, and just a bunch of buildup of dust or whatnot. So of course, if you have to stand at an angle to see if there's any dust buildup on there or whatnot. Of course, same thing with the hinges, works the exact same way. For me, with the hinges, what I like to do is basically just give a little twist every now and then as I'm going through to make sure it's getting all of every single crevices of the handles, tops, bottoms, sides, most likely behind it as well. And of course, give it at a good angle, stand on whichever angle you want to look at, make sure there's nothing built up. If you really need to just want to test yourself to make sure you got everything off, go ahead and just lightly just rub your finger through, see if there's any built up. Right now, this is good, so that means this Webster did the job of dusting off door frames if needed. And now, the exact same way, baseboards. And also keep doing it in this technique and this motion. It literally prevents so much of your posture to not be affected. I've seen a lot of people just have to get low and walk their way through like a hermit crab. Yes, that does work, but like I said, this is gonna be very backbreaking. So of course, keep it at a good length, spread through. And at this point, you're basically just walk it through. Same thing here again with this door frame. Most likely what I'm doing is going to the tops of the frames, because that's most likely where the dust is going to be built up, and obviously that's not really at our eye level. So of course we're going to try our very best to make sure we're getting all of the edges and of course centers of the door frames as well. Now of course, a lot of people forget, yes, we can of course get the hinges on the outside, but always be mindful and get aware that we're also getting the hinges on the insides as well. And as you can see, I'm just using a little circular motion to make sure it's hitting, the bristles are hitting all angles and all crevices of said door hinges. And also, doing the circular motion also will help you get the backs of said doors. Now, works the exact same way. And again, as you can tell, we saw a piece of dust fly off, so that means this is doing its job. Once again, this was a brand new bristle, but now we have a little bit of built up on it, so of course, like I said, just wipe it off. And if you did it correctly, you're gonna see all that dust just float off and fall into the carpet. And don't worry about the carpet, because that's of course always gonna have to be vacuumed nightly, so all that dust residuals will most likely be gone. And now, if needed, of course, you can use this to dust off anything, not only cobwebs. So this is very efficient in a lot of different ways. You'd be very surprised. Let's go ahead and find some cobwebs if needed. Or we use a frame. In this case, pull your seat out to make sure you're not stepping over it or prevent yourself from tripping over it. Now, of course, since these are higher frames, most likely I have to extend it to its full capability. And now, same thing as if you were dusting door frames. Exact same way. Basically, just move yourself down against the frame when needed. Of course, you have to go up. Of course, be mindful and check under blinds, make sure that you're not damaging anything or there's not any cobweb buildup. If there happens to be any cobweb buildup, go ahead and extend it as far as you can. And like I said, if there was a cobweb here, most likely just like to give it a little spin to make sure we're getting it all. Of course, you can go just up and down, but that can only be so affecting because if anything, you're basically just pushing all the cobwebs or said dust back into its spot. So if anything, we do not want that. And of course, just line it up and just square it off like this. Basically, just follow the pattern of the framing. Same thing on the other side. Be very careful not to damage anything. Of course, again, on the corners, make sure you just give them a good little twist, make sure everything is dissipating and being caught with the bristles. Same thing with this side. Go ahead and get yourself through the corner, give it a nice little twist, and just follow it through with the pattern of the framing. If you have to go over it a few times, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just following the pattern of the frame to make sure we're getting all angles and everything needed. Now, of course, not only did I basically did a 2-in-1 right there, I also got the cobwebs and also dusted off the frames at the exact same time. Very efficient. Again, once I said, like I said, make sure, take a look at it, make sure there's no buildup on it. And if there is, quickly just give a nice little brush through. Brush the tops if needed. Now it's nice and clean, ready for the next use.